Welcome back to Breakfast Central, and thank you to everyone who's joined us so far. And if you're just tuning in, welcome. You have now joined the section where you get to be a part of the show by calling in. The numbers to call will be on your TV screen. Please feel free to call in and react to any of the stories on the front pages of the papers. We'll have our analyst join us shortly to expand more on some of the stories, but let's take you through the front pages. We begin this morning with the Daily Independent newspaper. It's a very, very busy front page on the Daily Independent. The big story there, despite rising insecurity, NEC again shuns discussion on state police. OK's textile board targets $90 billion by 2035 with livestock plan. Reps walk out in disappointment as IBAS shuns summons. Okay, that's the story that I'm going to stop here for a bit and then come back to take more of the front pages of the big story there. So you recall that on the 18th of March, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did sanction, he suspended the River State governor, got the sole administrator to standing. But what we've seen in the past few weeks, ever since that day, has been protests and counter-protests for and against the sole administrator. So the pro-FUBA protesters are there, the pro-FUBA protesters who in turn are pro-IBAS, pro-Wike,
Martin Sami-Wule,
protesters out there. And I saw a report by the advisor, the senior special assistant on media to the sole administrator. And I'm going to take some of the things that he was reported to have said, which I find a bit off. But there was supposed to be a session, the House of Reps was supposed to go into a meeting with IBAS, but unfortunately he didn't turn up.
And the House of Reps has a committee to oversight the affairs of River State following the suspension of their State House of Assembly.
Right.
And Mr. IBAS was in Abuja for the Federal Executive Council meeting.
So maybe there was a clash, is why he probably couldn't show up.
Did the FEC meeting take forever?
Maybe it took too long, and by the time they were done, he was tired.
Did he communicate his absence to those to the honourable members of the House of Representatives?
Well, no official reason was honestly provided for Admiral IBAS's absence, but there was a source that informed some of the journalists. For example, the Punch reports that he will now meet with the committee on Friday, that's today, the 25th, at 10 a.m. in the National Assembly complex. We're not quite sure this is unconfirmed
we'll wait and see.
News, but we're going to wait and see what this will turn out.
News Central also reported that the members of that committee went into a closed-door session that lasted for 1 hour. They were discussing matters that I believe have to do with River State and in the absence of the sole administrator. And when they came out of that meeting, they refused to tell members of the press what went down at that meeting. But hopefully, Admiral IBAS retired will show up at 10 a.m. this morning
at the Assembly Complex. But then also, I just want to read out reports by Hector Igbikiowubu, the Senior Special Assistant on Media to Ibok Etebas, the sole administrator of River State. He said that incessant protests are beginning to grate on his boss's nerves. Let me report, this is by the cable newspaper, and I'm going to just read out the reports of, the Punch newspaper in an interview with the Punch. He said that he had been exercising, he said, and I quote, "The fact that people are able to protest speaks to the administrator's level of tolerance."
No, it's their right.
If you check,
he's not doing anyone a favor.
That kind of rubbed me off. If you check the Gazette declaring emergency, you see that it grants the administrator sweeping powers. Yes, sweeping powers. But unfortunately for Rivers residents, the administrator has exercised restraints. These protests, for whatever reason, are testing the administrator's will. We urge Rivers residents to be restrained. It is important that we allow a cool head to prevail at this time. All hands must be on deck to restore democratic institutions.
What about the pro-emergency rule?
So he's talking about all the protests. He said, he added that the protests are unnecessary and that restoration of democratic institutions in the state cannot be achieved through intimidation and harassment of the sole administrator.
Praising him and supporting the state of emergency, attesting as well.
Well,
interesting times.
Very interesting times. So I think, unfortunately, we have now become a nation that that sort of has demonized or criminalized protests. And it's why it will not make sense to me. The cable did report that the Punch newspaper, of course, reported that as well, because it was an interview that was granted by, according to the Punch newspaper, was granted on Tuesday by Igbikiowubu, who is the media aide to IBAS. It unfortunately positions our nation as one where people feel like it's a privilege. They are doing you a favor by giving you the power to protest. It is your right. Nigerians have a right to protest.
Exactly. It's guaranteed in the
exactly.
Constitution.
Our Constitution can dissent. If we didn't have a right to protest, then we can as well say that democracy is not entrenched
what's
here.
been the nature of this protest? People singing, playing drums. There's been no report of violence or breakdown of law and order. So why do you have issues with it? Why is it testing his will? This is not the Navy.
Because it doesn't make sense. I'm just going to read this again. He emphasized that the sole administrator had chosen to exercise restraint rather than use the broad powers granted to him by the Gazette. What are these broad powers?
Broad and sweeping powers.
With the APC boom.
And those powers, I believe the marching orders for the sole administrators to restore peace and calm in the state. So why do you want to use sweeping powers and broad powers on peaceful protesters?
It's important
and there are protesters on both sides of the divide.
Yes, there are protesters on both sides of the divide. And it's important to mention again that Ibas is there on the president's order. He's not the executive elected governor of Rivers State. The Rivers people cast their vote.
It's not even an indigene of Rivers State.
Elected their governor. So if they are upset and taken to the streets to protest, they're well within their right to protest, so long as this protest do not erupt in violence.
So
that was, I don't think that was a very...
Or maybe it's the spokesperson that is being a sacrifice.
No, I'm talking of the spokesperson. I'm hoping that...
Oh, yes.
That he understands the gravity of what he said, because what he said is a disrespect to the people of Rivers State. You can't come there and say, oh, it is his patience. It's basically like he's not acting on the fact that they are protesting. So what is he going to do?
People are trying me.
People are trying.
They are trying me.
Oh, you want to try me? Yeah, try me. Anyway, we're not done with the Daily Independent.
Another story on the front page of the Punch newspaper is the National Economic Council postpones state police discussion for the third time. I mean, why are they hiding from this discussion? It's in it's in public discourse. And judging by the incessant killings, the state of insecurity in Nigeria, Nigerians are looking for solutions, because what we've been doing in the past is not working. It looks like the military operatives and security operatives are stretched. Therefore, governors and Nigerians are thinking outside the box. And they're like, hey, why don't we try this state policing and see if it would work? But it looks like the federal government is not ready to hear that conversation now. The National Economic Council postpones discussions on creating state police for the third time, blaming its constraints from lengthy presentations at its Thursday meetings. Vice President Kashim Shettima chaired the council meeting at the State House in Abuja, with the governors attending, including Ibok Etta sole administrator of Rivers State, Nelson Wike, and others. And, well, there you have it. The meeting didn't hold because they have other issues to attend to, lengthy presentations. But what do you think should be top priority on any list of other presentations they had to do? Is security of lives and property.
Absolutely. You know what? We'll have our analyst join us. Dotun Ojon is here. We're going on a very quick break, and as we return from this break, he'll be here to share his thoughts on some of the stories on the front pages. We also want to hear your thoughts. We'll be opening the phone lines when we come back from this break.
say something. Good morning, sir.
May I even want girl?
Good morning, good morning.
Welcome back, and our esteemed analyst, public affairs analyst, to help us dissect the newspapers is here, Mr. Dotun Ojon. Warm welcome to you.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
And so many things have happened since the last time you were here. The Pope died. They had summoned Admiral Ibas to the House of Reps and has refused to show up.
Well, let's not say he refused. He did not. There are no circumstances for his absence were given. We don't know.
It was at the Federal Executive Council meeting.
Yeah, so much has happened, and also, the protest in Rivers State. Ibas's media aide had granted an interview to The Punch saying that they are testing his boss's patience, that Candace, even with he hasn't used his sweeping powers. If not, he's being lenient with the people that are protesting. That's me paraphrasing what was said. But let's
and also in Olive's home states, the governor has ported to the ruling APC. So a lot of movement.
Because we have freedom of movement.
Of course, yes.
So which story should we start with?
Even when you're in traffic, you still have freedom of movement.
Exactly. Which story should we start with?
Where should we begin from?
Okay, let's go back to the Daily Independent. The front page of the Daily Independent, we've talked about despite rising insecurity, NEC again shuns discussion on state police. Reps walk out in disappointment as Ibas shuns summons. PDP describes the Oborowori defection as sad and unfortunate. Let's start with PDP describing Oborowori's defection. Let's get your thoughts on the defection in total and what this means.
And to mar this together, following the defection, it's related. Ganduje says APC expecting more governors soon. 2027 is a done deal. Elo Fokobale, go home and stay.
I think the act of politicking is actually to get the gain of politics. And one of the gains of politics is to have major contenders in your fold. If PDP had been in power, PDP would have done the same thing. And
it's happened in the past.
Yeah, of course it has happened in the past. And it's just a principle of self-sustenance and survival for the governors. They just want to ensure that they win the next election. And by so doing, our political system has shown that to a very large extent, you need the power of the central, the backing of the central to be able to win the next election. That's opposed to the principle of democracy, though, because democracy is the only kind of government that lays emphasis on the input of the people, the participation of the people, and the gain of the people. So when you think that the only way to win the next election is to be connected to the central, then you have somehow sidelined the people in the entire process.
So in the Nigerian context, what does the central offer this governance?
Okay. I think the central as it is, and it's connected to what we saw on the front page of the paper talking about state police. The central as it is now controls security. The central as it is now controls forgiveness, political forgiveness. That means that if you dip your hand into the purse of your state and EFCC is after you, if you are fortunate to belong to the center, your sin may be forgiven.
Are there examples of this?
Of course, it's everywhere. We know what happened in Kogi State. Kogi State is a close-by example. Just for so many weeks.
I mean, the case is still ongoing. The white lion has been running from one court to the other.
Not with the same energy and the same vigor, except if we want to deceive ourselves. So what I'm trying to say is that as it is today, the central is very important because of the kind of power it wields. The center controls INEC directly or indirectly. The center controls the police directly. The center controls virtually everything. So everyone who wants to win the next election will just think that the best thing to do is to sideline the people and take side with the center. And I think that's the whole thing that we are having. And it's not a subject because in the marketplace, people can actually have conversation as to the right or the wrong. And it's not a subject of right and wrong. It is the current situation in our political system. And that does not mean that the people do not still wield the kind of power that democracy says they have. They still have the power. But whether they have the understanding or the capacity to be able to unite and use the power is a different conversation entirely.
All right. Very interesting analysis there. But let's move away, from there now. Move to still on the front page. Farmers lose over 20 billion naira to tomato pest outbreak in 2 months. Skyrocketing prices leave Nigerians struggling. Still on the front page of the Daily Independent. Armed herdsmen abduct 19 passengers in Benue. NIMET workers suspend strike.
Should this not be the headline?
Yeah, you see, so that's a very good question. See where the story is. It's a very tiny one there at the bottom of the paper.
Yeah. So when the principle of life is that when you continue to say something continuously without result, they may get to a point where, unfortunately, people will begin to get tired of it. If you link that story to the one we have, the next story that that didn't talk about state police, you discover that one of our major problems in Nigeria is the belief in external salvation. But what we have seen over the time has put a meat to the fact that you should not expect your salvation from the other person. What do I mean? If you connect it to this story, it's that we have always thought that our salvation is in a new law. It's not in a new law. To tackle insecurity today, you do not need a new law. For instance, when you talk about, once they create state police, maybe that is going to reduce insecurity. It may not reduce insecurity. What will reduce insecurity is not a new law. It's a new logic. Now, there's a law that created Hishba. And I've been at an event busted by Hishba before in Kano. There's a law that created Amotekun. Now, there are limitations to the law because they have the kind of ammunition they cannot carry. They cannot carry AK-47. But can I tell you that majority of the crimes that are committed is in connivance with the people of the community. And I'm going to tell a very sad story of a group of people that were traveling in the southeast. So they shot the policeman and abducted a few of them. So 2 or 3 of my friends actually escaped to a nearby farm. And as they were hiding, they saw a farmer. And they approached the farmer. Some people were trying to kidnap us and all of that. And the farmer hid them and went to call the kidnappers to come and meet them where they are. It shows that every community where there is crime today, there's active participation of the people in the community. So the essence of government is not just to provide arm and ammunition,
there's also the intelligence
to engage the community people to a point where they will believe that it is the duty. You see, the principle, the logical and psychological principle of the 10% says that in every community, there will be 10% of people that will be willing to commit crime. What government does is to rally the remaining 90% against the 10%. So when people in the community can successfully provide information to the government, you will see that this crime will come down. But our logic has always been, when we create state police, when we arm them, no, the community. That's why I was telling when Buhari was here, and we're talking about herdsmen killing and all of that. And I was interviewed, and I said, my fear is not even the fact that herdsmen are killing people. It's the fact that local people are buying into franchise of herdsmen. So local people cannot kidnap in the name of herders. And you say, oh, Fulani herdsmen, Fulani herdsmen.
Convenient boogeyman.
You get what I'm saying. So I think our reasoning should go beyond this always thinking that new law, Nigeria has enough law that is going to save the people. It's just the commitment and the understanding of how to execute this law to the benefit of the people. And I think we will get it.
All right. I do hope that we'll get it, honestly. I wanted us to speak about a projection, about a poverty projection by the World Bank, but it's in a way reflected. I think we can link it to this story on the front page of Daily Independent that says, uncertainty in oil prices will impact Nigeria, according to IMF. This morning, we spoke about the World Bank and the World Bank's prediction for poverty by 2027, how, the poverty percentage will rise. And we did have a guest earlier who said he doesn't believe in the World Bank statistics and that, we should ignore it. I mean, he doesn't think it's, he didn't actually say ignore it, but he said he doesn't believe it. The World Bank predicts poor economic fortunes for Nigeria. They said that there's a projected rise in poverty levels, estimating an increase of 3.6% by 2027. So let's talk about the two.
I don't want to take us to classroom this morning, but I don't have a choice. The concept of democracy, Olive, is that of fact and feeling. So you do not totally rely on fact in democracy. You also rely on feeling. We can talk about poverty. We can say there's no poverty in Nigeria. There's poverty in Nigeria. Do you know how to measure that? Apart from the figures that you have to go to the marketplace to measure the life and the feelings of people. That's why democracy is about people. What do they feel about the policy of government beyond the data that we have? At the moment now, between when the present government came on board and now, we've had about, 100 million more people that has been captured into the poverty net because of the policy of government. And why do I also want us to talk democracy in relation with figure and feeling? The government is richer today, but the citizens are poorer. In the sense that in my state, for example, the highest allocation they got before President Tinubu came on board was 7 billion naira. The governor, as we speak now, between 14, 16, and 17 billion. It shows that in data, in figure, that the state is richer. But in terms of feeling, the people are poorer. So how do we now link figure with the feeling of the people? It's for the government to be strategic, that when they make policy, they also not put they don't rely on just what the figures are saying. They rely on the feeling. So if I am picking it from both figure and feeling this morning, Olive, I will say that to a very certain extent, before 2027, because we have seen that a poverty line has actually gone so high now as we have it. And I'm thinking that there will be a gradual reduction in the height of poverty. So maybe it may actually be wrong to say that there will be complexity in the already complicated poverty situation that we have. I hope that as pump prices are coming down, as government, you will remember that even the Lagos state government that has been so quiet about tenancy agreement and rent is gradually coming out, because what we have in Lagos as far as housing is concerned is not sustainable. So when people begin to pay attention to transport system, to housing, to food prices, to petroleum product, I think the poverty line will come down a bit, not as high as the World Bank has projected it to be.
Okay.
But it's already complicated and complex at the moment.
Yeah. Now let's look at the Punch, back to the Punch newspapers. I saw an interesting story here. Still on defection season. Atiku Saraki spearhead PDP resurgence amidst key defections. Is anybody left in? It looks like it's only Saraki and Atiku that are left in the People's Democratic Party. Is there any way?
Wike is still there.
And even the people the governors that are still there, Governor Eno of Akwa Ibom, for example, he's saying, he has endorsed President Tinubu for 2027. That's an opposition governor.
Yeah.
And you also have some governors in the southeast. Their body language seems to be supporting the governor, the president, I beg your pardon. So is there still any hope for PDP as a major opposition party in this country, looking at the wave of defections and the projections?
Okay, so
can they still put up a formidable challenge against the APC in 2027?
So when the people say they are ready, political party relevance or irrelevance becomes nothing. PDP as it is today, and I said it the other day that I came, that it's going gradually, but Wike is still there. You didn't mention the name of Wike, still in PDP. So there are still a lot of people who can actually rewrite
this. PDP in APC clothing.
I wanted to say, is Wike really still in PDP?
If Wike is not really in PDP, by now they should have, what's it called? They should have suspended him. A man who is that powerful, that his own political party cannot suspend, despite what they call anti-party, it means that that man is still on ground.
Maybe they're in the process. We have not just seen the results.
It's because, unfortunately, both former Vice President Atiku and former Senate President Saraki, they don't have the moral right to condemn anybody leaving the PDP, because at a point, they both left. So, and that's the logic about political party operation in Nigeria. You see, once we get to a point where you begin to see a political party lacking the capacity to carry its members along, nothing kills a political party more than inability to abide by the structure of internal democracy. There are two things that sustain political party in Nigeria, or three of them. Number one is to be in power at the center. Number two is to embrace the principle of internal democracy. For example, if you are queuing behind me, if you do not have the capacity to win primary election, no godfather should put you in the front. But you discover that both APC and PDP have consistently abused the principle of internal democracy. What APC is even worse than PDP. Why a lot of people are not seeing it is because they are in power. After, I don't know, after 2027, whatever happens in 2027, maybe Locon or another person, Locon, after 2027, you will see how APC will fall apart. And I want us to keep this...
Regardless of if they win...
Regardless of whether they win or not. Because if they win, let's put it this way, if they win, it means that the president is not drawn into bringing people to the party to win another election. So,
his final term.
His final term. So, you will see how people... And there's this principle of implosion that happens when everybody gathers together in a place. You know, they call it stampede.
The sheep will be too big.
Yes, it's called political stampede. It will so happen when everybody gathers together and there's not enough position to go around. Then people begin to... That's what happened to El-Rufai. And I keep saying it consistently. If El-Rufai had been Minister of Power today in Nigeria, all of this conversation we're having about I'm going to SDP, I'm not going, will not happen.
Or this criticism of the government.
Will not happen. So when the available positions cannot go to the powerful people, then you begin to see that the powerful people will now begin to think like ordinary people. And they will now begin to say, oh, this government is not doing well enough. And before you know it, there will be a division. So what we have presently in PDP, they can still salvage the situation if they return back to the Nigerian people. Because no matter how difficult it is, the Nigerian people may look helpless that, oh, there's nothing we can do. But in democracy...
Well, who are the people in PDP that will even return when all their key personnel have been lost in the transfer season? You see,
there's one very significant thing that you weren't paying attention to. In 2023 election, do you know that Labour Party could not garner enough number of polling unit agents, even in Lagos, ward agent and local government agent, as ridiculous as that may sound, but they won Lagos. And that's the power of people. No matter the manipulation, when there's a resolve that, oh, we are going towards this direction, you will see that it will not matter whether there's a governor of the party that is sitting there or there's nobody. What's the people? And that's why I keep laying emphasis. Nigerian people are becoming, they are buying into what politicians want them to buy into. And that's to say that they don't have power. But all power, as it were, politically still belongs to the people, no matter the level of manipulation. If the people resolve that this is the direction they are going, I think something good will still come out of it.
All right, still talking about opposition, you've talked about the power of the people. We've been speaking largely about the PDP as an opposition party. Let's speak about the Labour Party as an opposition. The Nigerian Tribune says, Labour Party crisis. Again, Abure calls out OT and Obi for misinterpreting Supreme Court judgment. They're still holding on to the Supreme Court judgment, saying that the 4th of April 2025 decision was in their favor, reaffirming the leadership of Julius Abure, and he's refusing to let go. What really is the hope of the Labour Party and the projections for the future?
So, from the beginning, I repeatedly said it, that I was on here when I said it, that when it comes to the Nigerian kind of politics, if any political party is in power, their major target is to always destabilize any political party that will give them issue in the art of governance or in the process of the next election. And we've never had contests as beautiful as what we had in 2023. Whether the result favor anyone is a different thing entirely. All the three major political parties want the same number of states. It shows that when you have that kind of thing and you make an unpopular policy, immediately you are sworn in. In an ideal society, you won't make it for a second term. So strategically, what you begin to do is to see how do you appease the people on one hand, and how do you destabilize those political parties?
It's a strategy.
It's a strategy, and that's what is playing out. And I think in Nigeria, politicians just play into the hand of people in power. I don't see any hope for the Labour Party in the next election because this continuous crisis will debar them from the necessary appeal that they need to be able to win the next election. And I think the Supreme Court should be...
What about the individuals there?
Okay, so there's this Yoruba adage that says that if you put a leaf in a calabash of soap, by the time you're washing your linen, if you pick the leaf, foam will come out of the leaf. So when you put a credible individual in the midst of political crisis for too long a time, such a person will be demarketing himself without knowing.
There will be soap on that
There
person.
will be soap on that person, and that's what we have seen. You don't even know where to run to. You don't even know the next thing the court will say. So an individual can be so good, but when you stay in the midst of political crisis for too long, your believability begins to reduce. And
Are you
will not
speaking
even
about
know.
Peter Obi in this
Of course, I'm speaking of
Okay,
Peter Obi.
so your suggestion to him would then be to leave the party?
I mean, it's not just about leaving the party.
Can
It
this
should be.
crisis be resolved?
It cannot be resolved. And I'm being honest with you, it cannot. After resolving this, another group of people are going to court. And it will take eternity again for them to fight to the Supreme Court. And another judgment will be given. And another set of people will go to court again. It's a political strategy that will be bad.
Labour Party is not the only one that is having internal crisis. People's Democratic Party is having its own internal crisis. Do you then think all these parties should come together and form the popularly called coalition party?
Greed will not allow them. Everybody wants to become something until politician learns to act in the interest of the society and push self. You know, Nigeria politics is about calculation. And because of calculation, everybody wants to be something at the same time. For example, they are calculating, oh, if Tinubu wins the second time, that's 8 years to the south, then it will go back to the north. By the time it comes, how old will I be? Will I be 92?
I'm not even going to lie. Even me as a citizen, I did the calculation that, by the time this administration is done, see the age I will be.
And that, you know what that did for me? Because I also did the calculation is that, okay, no matter the bad policy of government, I must take my life seriously. Because
It's part of self-reflection. You need to think and
no
wake
matter
up.
how terrible, I must not take my life seriously. Because
entering
by the
into a
time
new decade.
they go out, almost
6 years.
it's almost gone. So because of that calculation, everybody just wants to be something at one particular point in time. Until we learn to see, okay, who is the person that will be able to drive the acceptance that we need from the Nigerian people. And we'll be willing, everybody will be willing to stand. There could be agreement here and there. In politics, there's always agreement. It could be an agreement of, can you do only first step? For example, we've had a Southerner president for 4 years that will lapse in 2027. If you are from the South, if your name is Peter Obi, can you do just a single tenure so that we have power return to the North? These are conversations. But politicians, the Nigerian politicians that I know, the ones that I've worked with, they will never agree.
Are you not a politician yourself?
Oh, I'm a nation builder. And that's the difference. And the difference between a core politician is that most of them, they just want, the idea is just to win election. But our own is to see how can we actually build a nation for everybody to live in. It doesn't matter whether we're
I must
empowered.
applaud you. You've done your own fair share in political education. You do this by showing up, even when it's not convenient.
Thank you,
You know, you're coming here on the show. So thank you so much for always making yourself available to discuss, have conversations about nation building and how we can project the country forward.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to have you, Dotun Ojon.